I'm Amanda and welcome to Self. On this podcast, I share ideas, experiences, and have conversations to explore the self. By developing our self-awareness, we can better show up for ourselves and those around us and hopefully all live happier and healthier lives. Today's episode is a continuation of the last episode on forgiveness. After I finished recording the last episode, I realized that there was a part that was missing, and that's how we can move forward and forgive ourselves when we've hurt other people. After I finished recording the last episode on forgiveness, I realized that the space that I was coming from was from the position of a person who has been hurt by someone else. So if you've listened to that episode, you would have heard me speak about forgiving someone when they've hurt you and then processing how that sits with you. For me, it was like, how do I forgive myself for allowing myself to be treated a certain way? How do I move on and kind of build trust within myself again? And after I finished recording that, I spent a bit more time reflecting on this word forgiveness, reflecting on the idea of forgiveness kind of overall. And sometimes I just spend time thinking about these things quite broadly. And that brought to mind moments and instances where I've been the person who has hurt other people. And I started to think about what that process was like for me, the acknowledgement, the realization of hurting someone, and then how I internalize that. And what I started thinking about was, well, that also required a process of forgiving myself for hurting people. And so that's something I wanted to share a bit about today, because I think if you are someone like me who perhaps you feel a lot of guilt, or you can be overwhelmed by a lot of guilt when you've wronged someone in some way, it's important to be able to process that in a healthy way as well, in order to move forward, to let go, and to, continue to progress in life and to learn from those instances. For me, when I think about past hurts where I've hurt other people, I would say that my deepest regret, and I'm not sure if regret is the right word, because it's not necessarily regretting an action or what the eventual outcome is, but it's that I am saddened by the fact that sometimes a byproduct of a decision is hurting someone. And when I ended my marriage, that inflicted a lot of pain on both myself and my ex-husband. And it's something that I didn't want to hurt him. I really didn't want to hurt anyone. And sometimes when we make decisions that are the best decision, it's the best thing that we can make of a situation, and we make an active decision. And in that, it's with an intention perhaps to be kind or to alleviate pain, whether it's, whatever, coming back to the intention, if it's made with good intentions and a byproduct of that is hurting someone, that can still be quite a painful thing to process. What I realized through my separation was, even though I was recognizing that I was making ultimately a good decision for myself, for our relationship, it still sucked that obviously we were both hurt by it. But particularly, like my hurt, I suppose I felt like, hey, I've made this decision for myself, so it is what it is. But more so of how much pain it brought to him. And that was quite challenging for me for a while to process, because I didn't want any of that. Like, I didn't want to hurt him. And so I think there are situations in life where we take certain action, where we make certain decisions, and a byproduct of that decision is hurting someone. And it's kind of this unfortunate and uncomfortable ramification that we just have to live with and to be able to accept in making a decision, in seeing a bigger picture of something that is ultimately good. And sometimes that unfortunately can't be avoided. And I would say that that is quite different and contrasting to other moments for myself when I have knowingly hurt someone. And in both circumstances, it's required a certain level of like forgiveness towards myself. So you have this situation where I really didn't want to hurt anyone, but ultimately did, as a result of a different, like the direct action wasn't I'm here to inflict pain and hurt onto you. It's making a decision that I feel is best for myself, for sure, and for our relationship. And then this is the end, just a byproduct, a result of it. Versus situations where I have knowingly, in a moment, hurt someone, whether it's with words or with certain actions. It's often for me been with words, because I think when we intimately get to know people and people allow us into their lives and are more vulnerable, of course, the ultimate power that we all give each other when we open ourselves up in that way is that we give people the power to hurt us. And in the past, I have been someone who has abused that power. I have taken opportunities because, in previous relationships, I've taken on what I know is like a sore spot for someone, and I know how to hurt them with certain words, because it's like, how to like push certain buttons. And when I think back on these past decisions to act, to behave, to speak in a certain way, what's important for me is to understand my why, to really reflect on what happened there and why I chose to act in a certain way. And also, I think the stage before that is to be really honest about intention. I think when we come back right down to the root of it, there needs to be a question of, did I intend to hurt this person or not? And I think there are circumstances where you don't intend to hurt anyone, where it's like, yeah, I'm making a decision that I feel is being kind and true to me, but I know that a side effect of this is that I'm going to hurt someone, versus I want you to feel pain. I want to hurt you with these words that I'm saying. Whatever it is. And when I look at and reflect on, my past actions and stuff, I can see both existing. And so let's talk a bit about these moments where we really actually, if we're honest with ourselves, have wanted to hurt someone. And from there, after being true with your intention, I think it's asking about the action and asking about the why. So, like I said, I in the past, tended to use words to hurt someone. And the reason I was doing that was because I was feeling hurt in the first place. So feeling this hurt, whether it's like I'm not feeling heard, I'm not feeling understood, I'm not feeling seen, or I'm feeling like my vulnerability here is being taken advantage of, I feel a lack of control. So there was something going on within me. And because I was unable to process it, to regulate it within myself, what I would do in order to essentially take back some kind of power or control is just to inflict that hurt back onto the other person. And that is certainly not something I'm proud of. but it's important to just be truthful. I think there are going to be lots of things we do in our lives that we're not proud of, that we perhaps might regret doing, but they are incredible opportunities for us to learn about ourselves, and then to learn from and to hopefully move forward and not continue certain patterns of behavior. So, yeah, I look at certain situations and can see that, hey, there were these times when I acted from a place of pain. I acted from wounds, whether that was triggering something from childhood for me, and then acting out either in a way that I had seen before, whether that's from like my upbringing, seeing that being acted out by my parents and just repeating the same thing, or just being really reactive emotionally and letting whatever wants to come out just come out. But I know that for a split second there, that the intention was to hurt the other person, and it was coming from this place of hurting within myself as well. So recognizing my why and being really honest with myself, with my intention, is something incredibly empowering, because then it allows me to go inside and go, what's going on? What is the real root of this? So that recognizing that pain that I might be feeling in a moment, and then being able to uncover the layers within that, gives me an opportunity to actually do work with that. It allows me to go in and go, okay, what's happening here and how do I communicate that in an effective way and create space, create a pause between feeling that overwhelm of emotion and then that reactivity that comes out. And I'd say that because I've been quite a reactive person in the past, that skill of becoming far less reactive and hopefully non-reactive a lot of the time has taken a long time. But that has started with those layers of seeing my intention, recognizing what was happening for me in that moment, and then catching myself when I, feel that overwhelm of emotion. So through that work though, we come back to that question of forgiveness of self. How do I forgive myself when I look back then and go, oh my gosh, I've really hurt someone and I don't want to be hurting people? And just like I spoke about in the previous episode about forgiveness, I think compassion and understanding play crucial roles in this. When we begin to understand ourselves better, and when I say understand, I mean this deep level of understanding, of uncovering these layers and going, okay, this is why I do what I do. This is how I've come to be this person, or these certain patterns of behavior have come about. It's having valuable insight on oneself, I think, and that takes a lot of time. I think it takes a lot of work and honesty. For me, it's taken a lot of journaling and therapy to come to a place where I have a more intimate and deep understanding of myself, and then viewing myself through compassionate eyes. It's having a sense of self-compassion is extremely important. And some of us might struggle more with having compassion for others, and some of us might struggle more with having compassion for ourselves. And so it's important for me, in my opinion anyway, to have, to hold space for compassion for both for others and for ourselves. Having compassion for yourself looks like being able to take that insight, that understanding, and going, I'm not going to hold this against you. Yes, I hurt someone and I intended to hurt them in that moment. But overall, I don't want to be someone who continues walking through this world hurting people. So I am going to reflect. I'm going to spend time learning skills of self-regulation. I'm going to give myself a moment of space when I feel overwhelmed emotionally. And what I'm going to try to do is to create that space to be a bit less reactive and to actively catch myself in moments when I want to hurt someone and perhaps decide to do otherwise. Part of, I think, forgiving myself has come from making active decisions to no longer be a person that behaves in a certain way, but also giving myself room to breathe and to fail, and that it's okay. When I'm able to look at myself compassionately, then I'm really able to also love the person that I am for all aspects of myself. You know, I think sometimes we can be really hard on ourselves, harder on ourselves than we might be with others, and hold ourselves to impossible standards. I don't expect perfection from others, and yet there are moments where I expect perfection from myself. I understand that as people, we sometimes hurt each other. And we sometimes hurt ourselves, in fact. And we're all here just journeying through life, figuring things out, and we don't have all the answers. But what we can do is slowly through, having an understanding and compassion for people, is to hopefully do that a little bit less. So when I can view myself compassionately and see all of that, I'm able to love myself really fully as I am, and be able to let go and not hold these wrongdoings over myself in the same way that I wouldn't hold it over someone else. I think being able to accept moments and mistakes that we've made, even if those, mistakes or regrets were to intentionally hurt or harm another person, it's important to be able to let go of that. And in the same way that we wouldn't forgive an action or condone an action, we might forgive the individual and not accept the action. I think the exact same thing applies to ourselves, that there are things that we can reject and say, I don't accept that kind of behavior from myself, but I am able to forgive myself as an individual and as a person who makes mistakes and who has opportunities to learn and grow and to be better and to be different, to behave differently, and to change these actions and to no longer speak in a certain way or behave in a certain way. And I remember hearing a quote somewhere that was like, regret is like hoping for a better past. I don't know about you, but I certainly have moments when I get caught up thinking about some past moments and feel, I suppose, like a deep sense of regret and guilt all over again. And I think just like the need to ongoingly forgive others who may have wronged us, that sometimes that's necessary for yourself as well. I have found that within myself, I've had to kind of go back and cycle through the understanding and the compassion for myself to be able to let go as I realize more and more. I think it's, as I'm going through life and then realizing, oh, actually, maybe I hurt people here or I hurt a person here more than I even realized at the time. And I'm seeing a clearer picture now and being able to let go of that myself. But this idea of hoping for a better past, we can get caught up in that, but ultimately we can't actually change the past. The only thing we have control of is our present, is what's going on now, and then hopefully be able to enact through reflection and through inner work, be able to enact and affect certain change for our future. And when we look back and recognize hurt that we may have inflicted on other people, it's important to see that we don't also require someone else's forgiveness for us to move forward. I think sometimes if you're overwhelmed by a certain amount of guilt or regret about the situation, that what you really want or might feel like you need to hear is that the other person has forgiven you in order for you to let go and feel this weight off your shoulders. But the reality is that's their decision to make. You can't control that. We can't control whether someone wants to hold something over us, or can't control whether they're going to feel resentment towards us forever. But what we can do is control the way that we see ourselves and how we feel towards ourselves and towards a certain situation. And so, I guess in looking at forgiving myself, I've been able to go, hey, like, yeah, maybe there are things that I feel I did that were really wrong and I wish I hadn't done them, but here I am. And what I have control over is being very truthful with myself so that in the future that doesn't happen again. And these are, of course, like we're talking about moments where I have intentionally wanted to hurt someone. And yeah, I think through acknowledging the wrong, acknowledging the intention, the action, and learning from that, through this lens of understanding and compassion, we can then let go. And we don't have to be burdened by that weight that carries with us. Ultimately, making decisions and choosing alternative actions when you're faced with similar situations allows for patterns to change. And that's the best thing that can happen for us, is that we learn from these moments and these experiences. And then we develop a level of awareness for ourselves. And then we can choose to be more intentional with our actions or our speech, or whatever it is, to avoid hurting people in the future. And I think the more that we apply this, I know for myself, the more that I've been able to create space when I feel overwhelmed by emotion, is I recognize that actually, yes, like for a split second, I might reactively want to hurt the other person because I'm feeling some kind of hurt. But that ultimately, if I just let that sit for an extra second, is like, no, I don't actually want you to feel pain. It's that I'm in pain and not wanting to feel this. But hurting you isn't going to solve that either. That doesn't resolve this for either of us. It's, that's always come from acting out of ego, I think. And, even saying that, the kind of picture that I have is like when kids just hit each other reactively. And it's like, well, we don't have to behave that way. And over time, recognizing for myself that actually I didn't want to hurt someone, that all I wanted was for my hurt to be relieved, and then learning skills on how to relieve that for myself, how to communicate that better, and how to regulate my emotions. That is ultimately what has freed me. And I'm then able to choose to respond more carefully and in a way that's actually true to my real intentions and with what I ultimately want. So, yeah, that is the episode. A bit more an extension on forgiveness of self when we've been the one to hurt another person. I hope that through me sharing this, that you've learned something or have been provided an opportunity to reflect a bit for yourself. I'm always interested to hear what you get from these episodes, so please feel free to reach out. Thank you, as always, for tuning in and listening to the show. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can do so just by following, subscribing, liking, reviewing, all of that through YouTube or wherever you listen to the podcast. You can follow me on Instagram at self_podcast or at Amanda Letran. That's Amanda Letran. I've also got a Patreon if you want to subscribe and support any further there. I'd really appreciate it. I release episodes every Thursday, and I will see you next week. Bye.